This is the construction history of Los Angeles. 4 million people live in a place with no natural harbor, no reliable water source, and a river that runs dry for part of most years. Every system that keeps that city alive, the water, the port, the roads, had to be physically built from nothing, against terrain that offered nothing for free. In 1781, 44 settlers arrived next to a Tongva village and laid out a pueblo. They had a grid plan and a church to build and farmland to clear. The first thing they actually built was a ditch. I went through construction records, historical surveys, engineering reports, and archival photographs, and used AI to reconstruct exactly how this city was engineered into existence. 4 construction projects across 240 years, each one solving the same problem at a scale the previous generation couldn't have imagined. Let's start with the ditch. On September 4th, 1781, 44 settlers arrived at the edge of a Tongva village called Yanga in the Los Angeles basin. The Tongva had lived in this basin for thousands of Yawam years, farming, trading along the coast, and navigating open Pacific water in Tiat, sewn plank canoes sealed with natural tar. Yanga was the largest and most influential village in the region, sitting just west of the Los Angeles River, where Alameda and commercial streets stand today. 300 people already lived there when the settlers arrived. The settlers laid out their pueblo a short distance away, following a grid designed by California Governor Felipe de Neve. The plan called for a central plaza, a church, and farmland radiating outward in every direction. Before any of that went up, de Neve's crews dug the Zanja Madre, the Mother Ditch, a network of open earthen channels running directly from the Los Angeles River into the plaza, the fields, and every household the settlement contained. The engineering was pure gravity. The channels ran on a carefully calculated slope, losing elevation at a controlled rate across several miles to maintain flow without causing erosion. Get the slope too steep, and the channel scours its own bed apart. Too flat, and it silts up within a season. The position overseeing this system, the Zanjero, or water overseer, became the most powerful civic role in the pueblo. The Zanjero decided when the water ran, and to whom. In a basin that went without rain for 6 months at a time, that made him more important than any elected official. By 1821, Mexico had won independence from Spain and governed California for 26 years. American forces under General Stephen Kearny ended that in January 1847, defeating California defenders at the Battle of San Gabriel River. 5 days later, the Treaty of Cahuenga transferred California into American hands, and the pueblo became an American town without a single wall moved or rebuilt. In 1869, entrepreneur Phineas Banning opened Southern California's first railroad, the Los Angeles and San Pedro, a 21-mile line connecting the city to its coastal harbor. On opening day, October 26, 1869, a crowd of 1,500 turned out, roughly 1/4 of the entire city's population. The Southern Pacific Transcontinental Connection followed in 1876, and the Santa Fe in 1885, triggering a rate war that briefly dropped Midwestern fares to $1. Tens of thousands poured into the basin in the years that followed. Then, in 1892, a drill bit struck oil at what became the Los Angeles City oil field, producing just 45 barrels a day at first. Within a decade, wooden derricks covered the basin in every direction. By 1900, the city held 102,000 people. The Zanja Madre, a gravity-fed dirt ditch built for a pueblo of a few hundred, was completely overwhelmed. The next water system would need to cross 2 mountain ranges and 233 miles of desert. But before that, Los Angeles had a different problem. It still didn't have a real port. San Pedro Bay existed. But in 1871, it was too shallow for large commercial vessels. The natural anchorage offered no real protection from Pacific swells either. Before any ocean-going ship could reliably use the port, the Army Corps of Engineers would need to build a harbor where nature had declined to provide one. The Corps began dredging the main channel in 1871. but progress was slow. The sandy bottom shifted constantly, with coastal sediment reclaiming depth almost as fast as dredge buckets removed it. The equipment of the era couldn't hold a consistent channel against the Pacific, and a decade of work left the bay barely serviceable. The bigger problem arrived in the 1890s. The Southern Pacific Railroad, which had bought Phineas Banning's original rail line in 1873, maneuvered to redirect the region's major port to Santa Monica, where it controlled the land and could dominate freight rates into the city. What followed was known as the Free Harbor Fight, a decade of political and legal conflict between Los Angeles and one of the most powerful corporations in America. Los Angeles won. Congress designated San Pedro as the public harbor in 1899, and the Army Corps received authorization to build the structure that would actually make it work. On April 26, 1899, President McKinley sent a telegram to San Pedro, and a crane dropped the first load of boulders into the bay. Construction of the San Pedro breakwater had begun. The method was straightforward, and the scale was not. Contractors quarried granite from Catalina Island, loading it onto barges and sinking it in layered courses along an alignment nearly 2 miles long, 9,250 feet in total. Workers built twin railroad tracks on a timber trestle extending over the water as the breakwater rose, positioning train cars laden with precisely sized rocks at each point along the advancing structure. Small stones went in at the base to fill the voids. Larger capstones locked the surface course. More than 4 million tons of stone went into the finished wall. The entire project cost $3 million and took 13 years, completing in 1912. Behind that wall, the Corps dredged the main channel to depths large ocean-going vessels required. Ships that couldn't have entered San Pedro Bay in 1870 could now dock alongside permanent quays. The railroad from downtown, begun by Banning in 1869, connected the port to the city in under an hour. Los Angeles had built a harbor from scratch, one barge load of granite at a time. If you're finding this useful, subscribing takes 2 seconds and means you won't miss what's coming next. Now, the water. By 1904, the city was running dry. Los Angeles had grown from 102,000 people in 1900 to over 200,000 by mid-decade. And the Los Angeles River, the same source that had fed the Zanja Madre for over a century, could not sustain that growth through a dry summer, let alone a drought year. The solution came from William Mulholland, the self-taught Irish immigrant who ran the city's water department. Mulholland had started as a ditch tender on the Zanja Madre itself in 1878, working his way up through the city's water infrastructure over 25 years. He knew the system's limits from the ground up. His proposal in 1904 was audacious to the point of appearing delusional. Carry water from the Owens River, a snowmelt-fed valley in the eastern Sierra Nevada, 233 miles south to Los Angeles, across 2 mountain ranges and the Mojave Desert, using gravity alone. No pumps anywhere on the route. The water would fall continuously southward, and physics would do the rest. Construction began in earnest in 1908. At its peak, the project employed nearly 4,000 workers living in 57 camps strung along the route. Summer temperatures in the desert sections hit 110 degrees. Winter shut down the mountain segments entirely. The steel pipes laid across the desert floor were wide enough for a grown man to stand upright inside them. The hardest work was underground. The route required 142 tunnels, totaling 52 miles of bored passage, driven through rock with compressed air drills and dynamite, with crews attacking from both ends simultaneously and meeting in the middle. In the first 11 months of tunneling alone, crews drove 22 miles of bore. The Elizabeth Tunnel, the longest single section, ran 5 miles through solid rock and took nearly 2 years to finish. Across the entire project, 2,300 tons of dynamite were consumed. A dedicated 120-mile railroad was built solely to carry materials to sections of the route that no existing road could reach. On November 5, 1913, the aqueduct opened, More than 40,000 people gathered at the Cascades near present-day Sylmar to watch Owens Valley water pour down the final spillway. Mulholland opened the gates and delivered what may be the shortest dedication speech in the history of American infrastructure. There it is, take it. What he didn't say, and what most in the crowd didn't know, was that the water wasn't flowing into Los Angeles. It was flowing into the San Fernando Valley, which wasn't yet part of the city. A syndicate of investors with advanced knowledge of the aqueduct's route had quietly bought valley land at agricultural prices before the project was announced. Los Angeles annexed the San Fernando Valley in 1915. The city got its water. The insiders got their returns. Mulholland's engineering was real. So was the manipulation built around it. The aqueduct made Mulholland the most celebrated engineer in California. The St. Francis Dam cost him everything. In 1926, Mulholland completed a 205-foot concrete gravity dam in San Francisco Canyon, 40 miles northwest of the city, to provide a reservoir for the aqueduct system. The site had a fatal flaw he never detected. The East Canyon wall sat on an ancient landslide, material that had already moved once and would move again when saturated. The west wall rested on mica schist that weakened progressively underwater. His geological survey missed both. On the morning of March 12, 1928, the dam's keeper reported muddy water leaking through the foundation. Mulholland drove to the site, inspected the leak, and declared the dam safe. At 11 minutes before midnight the same day, the entire center section of the dam collapsed outward. A wall of water 140 feet high moved down the canyon at 18 miles per hour, traveling 55 miles to the Pacific Ocean. It killed more than 400 people. The true death toll was likely higher. Many bodies were never recovered. Mulholland accepted full responsibility at the inquest and was cleared of criminal charges. He never worked as an engineer again. California's 1917 civil engineering licensure law had exempted municipal engineers from external oversight, meaning no one had the authority to review Mulholland's work on the St. Francis Dam. The disaster closed that gap. A year after the collapse, California created the Division of Safety of Dams, requiring independent geological review and engineering approval before any dam could be built. The mandatory site geology standard that came directly from the St. Francis investigation governed every major reservoir project built in the American West for the next half-century. Mulholland's success had made the aqueduct possible. His failure made large-scale water infrastructure safer for everyone who came after. In 1923, a contractor named Thomas Fisk Goff fixed 13 oversized letters to a scrubby hillside above a real estate development called Hollywoodland. Each letter stood roughly 50 feet tall and 30 feet wide, built from telephone poles, sheet metal panels, and chicken wire mounted on pipe scaffolding, then coated in white paint. 4,000 light bulbs ran across the surfaces and blinked in sequence after dark. The sign was engineered to last 18 months, long enough to sell the housing lots below it, and then be dismantled. The film industry had been transforming the area for over a decade before those letters went up. Studios arrived in the early 1910s, drawn by Southern California's consistent year-round light and the practical distance from Thomas Edison's East Coast patent enforcers, who controlled film production technology and charged accordingly. By the mid-1920s, roughly 80% of all films shown globally were produced in the United States, with Hollywood at the center of it. Studios were manufacturing stars at industrial scale, and the city's architecture reflected that ambition. The 1920s brought elaborate Spanish Baroque facades across theater lobbies and civic buildings, each one announcing a city that had stopped apologizing for its scale. The Hollywoodland sign was supposed to be temporary infrastructure, sheet metal and telephone poles scheduled for demolition. Instead, it outlasted its engineering by 26 years. In 1949, the last 4 letters came down. The remaining 9 became permanent. What had been built to sell house lots now advertised an entire industry to the entire world, a piece of temporary construction that became one of the most recognized fabricated structures on Earth. More cities reconstructed like this are coming. If you want to see them, subscribe and let me know in the comments. Which city should be next? Now, the freeways. The first Los Angeles freeway opened on December 30th, 1940. The Arroyo Seco Parkway ran 8.2 miles from downtown to Pasadena. 6 lanes, no traffic signals, no cross streets, and cut the drive between the two cities from 27 minutes to 12. It was a proof of concept. The California Division of Highways built it to demonstrate that a limited access road could function inside an existing city. The demonstration worked. What followed was a different matter entirely. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 authorized $25 billion for a national interstate system and gave California engineers a mandate to build at scale. Over the next 2 decades, the Division of Highways built 527 miles of freeway through Los Angeles, not through open land, but through a city of neighborhoods already standing, using eminent domain to acquire property and cut and fill grading to reshape the terrain it found. Cut and fill was the signature method. Engineers surveyed each route, calculated where elevation needed to come down and where it needed to go up, then cut through high ground and used that material as fill-in low sections. The technique kept the roadbed close to grade without requiring major bridge structures on every block. For open terrain, it was efficient. For an already built city, it meant carving wide channels through existing blocks, demolishing everything in the right-of-way, and leaving the remaining buildings permanently adjacent to a 6-lane highway. The concrete pours were continuous operations. A single interchange required weeks of uninterrupted placement, with ready-mix trucks arriving on a timed schedule, so no section of a pour had time to set before the next truck arrived. Steel reinforcement crews worked ahead of the pour on a separate schedule, finishing each section before the concrete team moved in. The coordination of multiple crews on different elements of the same structure simultaneously was the same phase simultaneous logic Del Webb had applied to the Las Vegas Strip, applied now at the scale of an entire metropolitan area. The displacement was not incidental to the design. Planners routed 7 separate freeways through the predominantly Latino neighborhoods of Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights, and East Los Angeles, demolishing thousands of buildings and permanently severing streets that had connected those communities for decades. An estimated 250,000 people were displaced across the system. Wealthier neighborhoods, including Beverly Hills, successfully lobbied to kill proposed routes through their districts. The Beverly Hills Freeway was canceled. The East Los Angeles interchange was not. By the early 1960s, all 7 planned freeways crisscrossed East Los Angeles. The 1973 oil crisis slowed expansion. Proposition 13 in 1978 cut available funds. The last new freeway in the system, the Century Freeway, opened in 1993. The displacement it caused became the case study that reshaped how highway routing is evaluated in American cities, studied, debated, and still not fully resolved. Los Angeles built the same solution 4 times. The Zanja Madre was the mother ditch, designed by one man for a pueblo of a few hundred. The Los Angeles Aqueduct was a gravity-fed pipe system, 233 miles long, engineered with no pumps and 142 tunnels, built by nearly 4,000 workers in 5 years. The San Pedro breakwater was 4 million tons of quarried rock dropped into open water to create shelter that had never existed. The freeway system was 527 miles of cut-and-fill highway driven through a city that was already there. Every one of them was an engineering answer to the same underlying problem. Los Angeles had more people than its natural geography was designed to support, solved at the scale available in each era, then replaced or expanded when the scale ran out. What the Zanja Madre established in 1781, water moved by gravity through engineered channels, was still the operating principle of the aqueduct 132 years later. What the aqueduct demonstrated influenced the engineering thinking behind the Hoover Dam, the Central Valley Project, and the Colorado River Aqueduct. What the St. Francis Dam failure cost in lives, it returned as the mandatory geological review standards that prevented the next one. What the breakwater at San Pedro proved, that a functional harbor could be built where none existed, was replicated up and down the Pacific coast for a century. What the freeways did to East Los Angeles is still the first case study in any serious course on equitable infrastructure planning. The ditch Denave's settlers dug in 1781 ran until 1904, 123 years on gravity and slope. Subscribe if you want more cities rebuilt from the engineering up, and tell me in the comments which one I should cover next.